a quick pace here to move on from scene to scene, but the line where he says chaos is a ladder is a huge moment, because that's a callback to season 3, episode 6, called Climb or The Climb or something, where he's talking to Viserys in the throne room in King's Landing, and they're looking and remarking on the swords that make up the Iron Throne. And as they're talking to each other, they're talking about all of the bloodshed and things that would have had to have happened to make this piece of furniture, right? And he says, but chaos is not a pit. Chaos is a ladder. And so for the two guys, that couldn't be more true, right? For Varys and for Littlefinger to be standing there and saying, like, we need everything to fall to shit if we're going to have any chance of doing a power grab. And so that's been like the trajectory of, you know, both of those characters. I think we're starting to see Varys fall off that a bit and become more of a, you know, of a kind-hearted, wants to help the people. That's a whole nother story, of course. We've unpacked that a bit. But for Littlefinger, that's really been his like MO so far, as to who can I manipulate, what strings can I pull. And I know we're an audio podcast, but at one point as we're talking about Littlefinger, Seth started doing like a minaret, like puppet dance, because that's what he is. He's
right, just pulling strings.
Yeah, and we've even said, like, is the Game of Thrones between those two? And I still think that's a really valid theory. And I think that hearing Bran say something like chaos is a ladder, he's like, shit, that you just unmasked me. Like, and no one has been able to unmask me. Now, some people might tell me to like get away, or, you know, you're being obnoxious, or some people can call me on some of my like minute bullshit. But if you know that I said that to that guy, then I'm unmasked and I'm naked. So
I completely agree. I think in this episode, and they've always been great at this, but a lot of the minute details and the different things that they're panning in on, the touches that are happening, the things that they're conveying, not just with their words, but with the way that they're actually shooting the scene, especially in this episode, was just, I thought, fantastic. And that specific moment just felt like it conveyed a significant amount. And not to jump too far ahead, but when Sansa finds out about that moment, and she says, why would he do that? I think we mentioned this in the last episode. Does Sansa really, right? And I'm sure we'll dive into that more, but I think that starts to answer our question there. I think when you think about Littlefinger and what is the game that he's really playing here, what is his goal? You know, I think with the older generation, when we were in season 1, 2, 3, he really tore apart the Starks to the point that you guys are making. I'm wondering if with this newer generation of Starks, as we see in this episode, you know, Arya coming back, Sansa, everybody really taking into their own and coming to their own as they come of age and become the new generation of Starks, they aren't playing Littlefinger's game, and he doesn't know how to really infiltrate them. They're becoming stronger as the season has gone on.
Yeah, well said.
And I saw that play out, and kudos to the actor for Littlefinger. It was like a 3-second shot of his face just after Bronn said, chaos is a ladder.
This is a season for the actors,
right?
Like,
they're pulling out
anything.
all the stops,
yeah,
all of them,
yeah.
But
for those little minute details,
he was just like, so I guess everything's gonna fall apart for me at this point. Like, it was literally the end of everything.
So what do we got next?
Oh yeah,
excited dog in here.
Yeah. So as we move forward, we see Arya come to Winterfell.
Not yet. And I think you're skipping over a big piece that you want to talk about. Mira and Bran have a conversation.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Same scene. Yeah, same scene.
Just a little offshoot.
So it's tough because, Mira is this. Sorry.
Crowded room tonight.
Yeah, Mira is this just, in my opinion, like this unsung hero of Bran Stark, and obviously the Three-Eyed Raven has become such a big player in the Game of Thrones, and that was honestly one of the scenes, which is weird to say, especially when all the Starks come together, that I was more emotional for, was because Mira just felt like so abandoned by Bran. Like, how could you not even feel this with me? I feel so disconnected now that I'm going to be leaving or moving on from you and this journey that we've been on together. How could you feel similar to me in this moment? And I don't know. I felt like she just got cast aside. And moving forward, it really shows that Bran has his own mission. He's on his own mission.
Yeah, like Bran is dead. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that character, and I think he even says it in this episode, right? He says something along those lines, but like Bran is dead. He's the Three-Eyed Raven now. Like, anyone who, he says something, what was the line? Like,
it was Mira. Mira said you died in that cave.
Yeah, we kind of confirmed Carl's crazy, convoluted...
shout out to Carl.
Which I think is amazing, because for me, it was like, yeah, why would he be so unemotional? But at the same time, these people have gotten broken up. So you see Arya and even Sansa be emotionally removed from people, but not like Bran is as a complete just, he's like a lost cause out in the wilderness.
It was like even in that that meeting between Sansa and maybe did we really dive into that one yet though? Sansa and Arya's reunion.
Coming up. So yeah, this is the scene. This is still the scene with Bran, with Mira. Do you have anything to add? So
no, I mean I think we kind of talked about that philosophy, but I mean he says a couple things. He's like, I'm not really Bran anymore, and then he even says to Littlefinger like, I'm not Lord Stark. Like he's got this ethereal view of all of this stuff now, and he's just kind of like let the worldly stuff float away.
I have one last thing to say about Bran.
Sure.
I would just love to be able to be him and just completely blow everybody's fucking mind all the time. Just be like looking at somebody and then all of a sudden be like, that thing
I
you
know
did
I knew your entire internet history. And you're like, no.
no. Be like, Brogan, I totally saw you in the bathroom 2 weeks ago when Kendall was out of town.
But here's the thing.
Private browsing has nothing on Bran.
Yeah.
Incognito mode.
What's up, incognito mode? All right, we got on a tangent.
But I think this lends itself into that next scene after, and not to skip ahead to like an overview like the Arya Sansa reunion. But there's this piece to Bran that he doesn't want to divulge everything for the fear that there are some things he can't be a part of. And I'm going to a different sci-fi thing. I'm going to pull a page. In Doctor Who, they talk about this all the time.
Boy.
Right. They talk about this all the time about how there are these fixed points and you can't go back and you can't fix those things. You have to let them be what they are. But there are these other series of events or whatever it might be that you're allowed to manipulate. And I think that's kind of the same idea of what Bran is adhering to, is that he can't necessarily be a part of all of these things.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so next we see Arya up on the hill looking onto Winterfell, which was just an incredible moment in my mind because her story arc for me has been kind of the longest comeback. Her and Sansa, obviously, and they share the moments, but she essentially sees her father get decapitated and is completely just, taken away from the rest of her entire family. And for that to be the moment that she comes back as this badass assassin that we see through the rest of the episode is just incredible to me.
So I have one complaint again. I feel like
we gotta take it down a notch.
Yeah, I'm getting like one of these an episode now, and I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna start just calling these. I'm gonna brand these the TV moments. The Brogan's TV moments. Fucking Bulk and Skull up there at the front gate. Like,
what a great reference.
Yeah, just like these two like bumbling idiots at the front gate, which is fine. I understand you need some comic relief, right, once in a while on the show. But it was like, to me, it was like, oh, okay. All right, it's like, well, did you watch it? Where'd she go? Didn't you have an eye on her? And it was just like this moment where it's like, did we really need to go through all that? Now, I also have like had the thought, like, I think they said in the post show or whatever, the breakdown with the producers and stuff, they said they're likening it to Odysseus' journey when he gets back from
nobody
recognizes him, right?
It was like a 20-year thing.
Yeah, so that part I got. It was just like the bumbling back and forth, and then when they're like trying to explain it to Sansa, and they're like,
Have you ever read the Odyssey though?
Yes.
Like that is kind of what happened.
That's okay though. I'm saying like that's okay that that she wasn't recognized. I just wish it was done in like a, I don't know, I guess a smarter way.
I completely agree. I think there's a point, maybe some people disagree with me, but I think it's the Marvel versus DC kind of, difference.
DC being the better franchise.
Well, I mean, we can agree to disagree on some of this, but
sure.
I think there's just the right amount, and I think that at some point you go too far, and I think probably as a director or as you're too close to it to see that you took it one step too far.
I'm assuming you're talking about Iron Man 3, right?
No. I will leave it there so we don't have
to. You're not talking about Batman vs Superman. I know you're not coming to my house and talking shit about Batman vs Superman.
Right,
but we digress.
No, I think that's a funny point you both make because there were multiple times that like I felt personally like there were those TV moments, but we're again moving so quickly that's how they're portraying these characters in a time when we never saw that. So like Davos was kind of a comedian on his walk down the stairs, and we can talk about that scene in the future. And then their heat in the cave, if we want to talk about that too, was very much like a TV scripted moment. Yeah,
for sure.
So but are the TV moments such a bad thing at this point?
No,
we're halfway through the season at this point.
I appreciate the call-outs, though. I appreciate the call-outs,
the
though,
call-outs
because
are so good.
Because the show for so long was this long, drawn out. You feel every moment, and you feel it because we have that backstory now, and that's not that way all the time.
I feel like that moment, even though it was comical when Arya's there, was also incredibly important because she spent so much of this entire every season saying, I am no one, I don't know, I'm not Arya Stark, right? And she stands there saying, I am Arya, I am Sansa's sister. Tell her sister is home. Like, she is powerfully saying, I'm here, I'm home. Like, so it's funny, yes, but I think it was also a really powerful moment. And it was kind of nice, that play, I think, the balance of that. But then when they have her sit there, and then, so I think that's where it started going, and we're done.
I think that brings up a really good point, too, that I want to talk about. I think it was when she met Nymeria again, was that 2 episodes ago? Episode 2. So when she was going home and she's looking at Nymeria, and we really tried to unpack this for a while on the show. It was like, well, what does that mean? Like, does that mean when she looks at Nymeria and says, that's not you? We're like, obviously, and even the producer said that was an analogy for Arya saying that to herself, like, that's not you. And it almost feels like now it was the opposite of what we were thinking, and that when she was saying that's not you, she was talking about her like march to King's Landing to like kill Cersei and continue doing that. She was like saying, no, that's not you. Like, I need to go home. I'm a Stark. I am not this faceless person. I am Arya Stark. And then Beth's point about her standing there at the gates and shouting that ostensibly at the top of her lungs is that moment where she's saying, I'm fucking home. Like, this is me, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm home. I just wish it was more powerful than, again, Bulk and Skull.
That's great. No, I think this is great, and I think the big piece... So it's been 61 episodes since she's been at Winterfell. They left in episode 2 of season 1, and she is back in season 7, episode 4. Like, that is a long, drawn-out period. And there's that point where she kind of, like, turns her head, and she looks at the Stark banner, and I think she has this comfort of her being at home, but I think she also realizes that she's not quite the same as what she used to be.
Just to tag on to the end of this, Arya is a faceless man who has a name. None of the other faceless men have names. She has claimed her name at this point.
So you're saying like she's just using it now as like a skill she's learned.
She's learned the skill, but she is now in the service of her name.
She's someone.
She is someone.
Yeah.
She's not no one anymore.
Yep.
That's fair. Yeah, Jaqen doesn't count, I guess, because he's the faceless man, maybe?
So that scene when they're down in the catacombs and they're looking at that really terrible sculpture of Ned Stark.
Unpopular opinion. I didn't think it looked that unlike him.
It literally looks like it's from the Batman animated series. like these giant shoulders and like blocky head, and like that was maybe a weird call out for this show, but
I'm with Seth.
You think it was?
I thought it looked like him.
I didn't think it was that bad.
You look like you're like, that's Sean Bean.
I couldn't have been that good. Yeah.
So anyways, when they're down there, and they finally have the reunion that like should be carrying more weight than the reunion between Jon and Sansa, even though that was a really powerful reunion. They'd never. Maybe they shared one scene together, like before that, right? Sansa and Arya, assuming, were very close as sisters and Stark sisters, but they even had a lot of screen time at the beginning and had these like totally different viewpoints on life last we left them, right? Where Sansa just wanted to be a princess and wanted to do the Disney life, and Arya wanted to be a tomboy and be a soldier. And now that they've both sort of realized that the route to those things is not as nice as it sounds, but
they both did those things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as glamorous as what they thought.
Exactly.
But they both did those things. I mean, Sansa was a princess, right? And Arya did go out and learn to be a soldier and fight. Like, they both did that, but it wasn't like this glorious thing that they imagined.
I completely agree. I think it's one of those things. I have 2 sisters, and growing up in the same household with somebody, sisters or not, I think there's something that connects you. And to leave somebody that you've literally known every day of your entire life, even if you hated them, they drove you freaking crazy, fought all the time, it doesn't matter. And then to not see them, and even you're grateful for it maybe, and then to reconnect after years and years later, and especially in this situation where they both successfully achieved things that as kids they both wanted and is what divided them. I think